Thank you so much for joining us on the Dwelling Show. I'm your host, Ola Dantes. I've got the incredible Lauren Hardy with us today. Hey, Lauren, how you doing?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Doing fantastic. I cannot wait to jump in, but I definitely want you to tell our listeners a little bit more about, who Lauren is, what you've been up to, what you're doing lately.
Awesome. Well, my name is Lauren Hardy. I am from Orange County, California. I am a real estate investor. I've done a little bit of everything. I flipped houses, still flip houses. I do wholesaling, and I've built homes, held some rentals. So I've done a little bit of everything. Currently, my focus is virtual wholesaling. So I invest in areas that are not in my backyard. Living in the state of California, it's super expensive. It's very hard to make good returns here. So I have to invest out of state. Because I've had to figure that out, it was quite a challenge. I came up with a coaching program, so I now teach other people how to invest out of state, how to manage it, and best practices, kind of A to Z. How do you run a real estate wholesaling or investing business out of state? So that's what I'm doing. I'm just a busy lady, I guess. I'm also a mom of two little girls, ages 6 and 9.
Yeah, so I can definitely relate. I've got two kids myself, so I'm officially a feminist. I've got a 2-month-old and a 3-year-old, so I'm right there with you. And I don't know how you have time to do real estate because even, I'm struggling just to get time. So we definitely will talk about that, being a single mom. So I want us to kind of roll back a little bit to, how you got started. Why real estate? I mean, you could have been doing anything else in the world. Why go into this business and why wholesaling?
Well, I kind of had a real estate background. My dad held rentals, and he, talked to me a lot about real estate and the benefits of it. He did not. He was actually a CPA and a college professor, but he invested in real estate on the side. And he had said, if he were to do it over again, he would have gotten into real estate. So he, growing up hearing that enough, I said, okay, well, I'm just going to not make your mistake and I'll just get into real estate. There wasn't much thought about it. I just kind of assumed that was always what I was going to do. I started in corporate real estate, more of a commercial real estate background. And it wasn't until my first daughter was born that I wanted to find something that I could do more on like a self-employed basis, something that I could work from home and do. So flipping houses, it was a kind of natural transition to house flipping. It was something that, someone with not a ton of money could get into. So that was my first start, was just flipping homes locally in the Southern California market.
Yeah, and how was that for you? Because did some flipping myself, wasn't for me. A lot of folks start in different parts of real estate. How was that for you? Flipping houses seems like a lot of active stuff. You gotta be on site. You gotta speak to contractors. And I always talk about the first three letters in that word, contractors. When I when I deal with contractors, horrible joke. And I love you, contractors. But how was that for you?
It wasn't as bad as a lot of people have it. I've had tough experiences, and I know exactly what you're getting at with contractors. But when I was flipping houses in my backyard, I had it pretty dialed in. I think being a single mom, being busy, has it. And one thing that I do really well is I try to make everything very efficient, and I try to be very efficient with my time. So when I was flipping houses, the first thing I did is I was going to find the best contractors that I could find that are very investor friendly. So I spent some intentional time finding, the right people on my team. And once you have the right people, you don't have those headaches. So I actually networked with very high volume flippers, guys that were doing, that actually worked for more like companies, hedge funds. And I started figuring out who their contractors were, and I started using their contractors. So that was like the best, that's the best way to get a good contractor, is figure out the high volume guys who's, doing their work. So once I made a couple really good key contractor relationships, flipping houses was a breeze. I just had to focus on finding the good deals, and I left everything to my contractor. He pretty much would just tell me when the project was done.
Awesome. You talked about good deals. So, perhaps you can share, one of the good deals that you did during your flipping days. If you don't mind, just tell us a fun story about that.
Gosh, I mean, I feel like I did a lot of really great fun deals, and then I've done some not so fun deals.
Maybe tell us one of each, right? A fun one and then also a fun one.
Um, one of my most, my best deal, my most profitable deal was the biggest disaster I'd ever like experienced. I bought a property and I got sued immediately by the homeowner. I did not do anything at all wrong. It was a real estate owned property. So this homeowner, she foreclosed and the bank took it back. Well, the bank was actually a small private investment company. So really they just held the note. They took the home back, they foreclosed on her. And she just could not wrap her head around the fact that that this investment company was able to do that. The loan that she took was more of a hard money loan. And I think she just thought she could borrow $55,000 on her property, and get a lender to be in second position. And she just thought a second position loan can't foreclose. Well, she borrowed the 50 grand. She didn't pay it back. And the second position lender foreclosed on her and took the house back. The house had a bunch of equity in it. So the second position lender was, sitting in a really good spot. They sold the home to me. I'd heard about the opportunity just kind of through networking. I met this, note trading, company. And I said, yeah, if you ever take back a home and it's local in my area, I'd buy it off you all day long. So I bought the home right off of them. Well, guess who got to get sued? I got sued by the homeowner because she did not think it was very fair that she lost her home. So she had to sue me to freeze the property. So I couldn't fix it up and resell it and make a profit. So she sued me and she sued that lender. That property at first was a disaster. I was like so stressed out. I ended up holding the property for 2 years because we were in litigation for 2 years. The house needed a ton of work. It was getting broken into all the time because a lot of the time it was vacant. This house, like, literally took off, like shaved off 5 years of my life expectancy as far as how much stress. And she had a lawyer, like she got some, I think it was like a family friend lawyer. So he, took it really seriously and tried to get us, like try to take the whole case all the way to trial, which, was crazy because she really didn't have a case. She didn't pay her bills, she didn't pay her loan and the house was foreclosed. They did everything right. But either way, when you get sued, you have to go through the legal system. So anyway, I thought I was going to lose a ton of money on this thing. Like I was like, oh my gosh, this is a nightmare at first. But the market kept going up. So in that time that I held the property, it had appreciated a substantial amount. And that to date is my highest, paid flip. Once we finally sold it, I net $90,000 on that. And that was after like I paid all the holding costs. I didn't have to pay any legal fees because it was covered under title insurance because it was something I bought really into. I didn't know, I had no previous knowledge of it. When you're a bona fide purchaser and you get sued, title insurance will kick in. So I didn't have to pay legal fees, but I did have to pay holding costs. And I did have to pay for a lot of damage and stuff like that. So that was my best deal. One of those where it started out as a really bad story and then ended up as a good story. I was very happy the day I sold that house.
I bet.
Right. So I almost feel like I just wrapped the best and the worst.
I think you did. Yeah, I think you did.
Yeah.
All right. So, you flipped a ton, in your backyard, as you said, and then, you kind of also started, wholesaling out of state. A lot of folks living in California are like, hey, I can never find good deals in my backyard, or, when I find deals, they're just really out of price. So I'm going out of state. How was that for you, making that transition, or maybe not so much a full transition when actually start wholesaling, virtually, right? You're like a virtual investor, which is more of a thing right now with everything going on in the world. So can you just kind of talk a little bit more about, your transition into wholesaling and doing that all virtually?
Well, it started with, not being able to find good deals in California. The market really heated up. It was about 2016, and I was having a really tough time finding deals the way I used to find. I had to, reduce my margin and my expectations on what I would get on each property quite a bit. It was costing me more to get the deal and marketing, but not only was it costing me more, I was making less on the deal, like cut in half less. So it was getting very difficult for me to, make a profit at the end of the day. So I had to diversify. At first I started out with the intention of, I'll do a little bit in California and then I'll do a little bit in an out of state market. So I started with building homes. I kind of fell into buying these lots in Nashville and just building houses there. It was kind of random, but that was sort of my first virtual venture. And it was exciting. It was fun. I made some good money doing that. And then I started wholesaling in Nashville because there were all these builders that wanted these lots. So I started identifying, where the motivated sellers would be and what were good opportunities and what were the good neighborhoods that the builders were really gobbling up houses in. And I started marketing direct to the sellers there, and then started selling those to the developers and the other investors. There was a lot of hedge fund activity in Nashville. So that was my first virtual experience. And there was a lot of learning. And that's, why I came up with the coaching program, was because I had no mentor at all. There weren't a lot of virtual people. So I had to think, out of the box and trial and error. And, what took me 4 years to figure out, I wrapped up in a course that'll take someone 10 days.
So yeah, I think let's go to that. So there are a ton of mentors and coaches right now, obviously in the real estate investing game. So, what would you say makes you different, right, to other kind of coaches out there?
I think that there's a lot of differences. I mean, first, I would say the first thing that I pride myself on is that I always invested in my own education. So even if I knew enough about flipping or wholesaling, I would still buy a course every single year. I would still go to seminars. So I was very intentional when I was making my own course to take what I thought was good in some of the courses that I purchased, but also eliminate some of the things that are bad about some courses, because there are some things that in courses I noticed aren't really helpful. One thing is I made my course very instructional versus educational. So educational would be let me go on and on for hours about the philosophy of why I market to a seller in this, this and blah, 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 right? And I'm talking for hours and hours and hours, right? Well, by then the student has lost me and doesn't want to finish the course because they're stuck on module 3 and they've been listening for 3 hours. My modules are very short. They're 5 to 10 minutes long. And I just tell you exactly what to do. Step 1, step 2, it's a recipe to, baking a cake. And if you want to know the philosophy behind why I do what I do or what I want, that's what my coaching calls are for. We can talk about it. If you really want to bring that up, you can post it on our Facebook group and I can give you my reasonings. But I think most people appreciate not having to sit through hours and hours of training modules to get what they could have gotten in 5 minutes.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I might have to steal that, right? That's a really good way to do it. I really like that. Just kind of like a recipe, right? Like if you're, cooking the food for the first time and you just literally, follow that step and you don't care why it's, you know, half a ounce of whatever. You just want to make the thing, right?
Make the thing, right, exactly. People really do. I mean, I noticed that a lot of students, they get stuck in analysis paralysis. So if I give too many reasons why to do something, they might challenge it, or it's just more stuff for their minds to overanalyze. So it's easier, I think, and it's more effective to just say, do these steps and talk to me about it later after you've done them.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. So, also I was just kind of thinking when you were talking. So if I were to be actually in California, right? And, I kind of facing the same things you are, can't find the good deals. you don't have to mention specifically, what cities, but like, how do I know, where to go invest, right? Like, what are the steps that you take to choose a market, or maybe even a strategy within that market? What are kind of your recipe for that?
The first thing I always say is search for the proven concept. So look for other people, look where and for other people doing what you want to do successfully. So you need to look for the areas where there are a lot of purchases by investors. Easy, we have so many tools now, with the like PropStream or List Source, what have you. You can easily find cash purchases in an area. So look for an area where you see a lot of cash purchases, and then start getting on the phone and networking and talking with other investors who could potentially partner with you at first. That's like the second thing is I say, look for a JV partner in that area.
Yeah, partnerships. Let's talk on that before we go into the quick round. So, how do you find a good partner, and how do you vet a good partner? Like, partnerships can be, really amazing, or hand terribly. So, how do you find a good one in the first place?
Yeah, good partnerships, it's a lot of trial and error. It's not always going to work out. I like to kind of say the rule of three, or the three little bears, like this one's too hot, this one's too cold, this one's just right. So you might want to have three people that you're working with or talking to, and, you try them all out and see which one works out the best. I think the worst is when you don't try anyone out and you just talk to the first person you talk to and you're like, oh, good, I'm done. I found my JV partner. Well, no, it's not that easy. You need to find like three of them, and you need to give all three of them a shot and see how all three of them work.
Last question, if there's a single mom, listening to us and thinking, wow, I just don't have enough time, I don't know if I can even get started in real estate. Just like, what would you say to that person? What are your thoughts on that?
When you're talking to moms, I get it. Like, we don't have a lot of time because kids are exhausting. I am the first person to like really commiserate with you on that. When I talk to people without children and they're like, oh, I don't have time, I'm like, well, what really do you have going on? And I can dissect usually 7 hours out of their day that they have time to start a business. But when you are a parent of young children, it usually that 7 hours is more like one. I totally get that. So when I give different advice to parents and non-parents, I mean, when it is a parent, I say, okay, what can you outsource? Where can you get help? So you have more than 1 hour a day. So if right now you literally can only think of 1 hour a day that you could possibly work, you need to figure out what can you outsource, or what can you get help? Is there somebody that can watch your kids? Can you nanny exchange where you watch somebody else's kids at the same, and then they watch your kids and you exchange nanny services if you don't have the money? Can you hire a nanny? Can you put your kids in daycare? I released a lot of guilt for putting my kids in daycare. At first, I wanted to do this business and stay home with my kids. And that was my first intention. I started with a corporate job, and I started this business at the same time so I could quit my corporate job so I could be home with my kids. The second I was able to do that, I realized it's impossible to work around little kids. I didn't know that until I was there one day trying to make it happen, and it was literally impossible. They don't let you work. So I had to then go put my kids back in daycare. Now, granted, not as long and not as many hours and as many days, but I still had to do it. And I felt really guilty about that. But I'm telling, you moms out there, like, listen, you don't need to feel guilty because you put your kid in daycare a couple of days out of the week so you can start a business that's eventually going to take care of them and send them to college. That's eventually your kids are going to go off to college and they're not going to really need you anymore. And like, they're going to be so happy that their mom has something that fulfills them and keeps her busy. So I kind of gave myself that type of, advice and self-talk. And so now I don't feel quite as bad.
Yeah.
But, that would be my advice.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. I mean, I can keep talking to you, but we're definitely dwelling into the quick rounds. These are going to be quick questions, quick answers. You ready, Ma?
Okay.
All right. First question. What makes you, Lauren, unique? What is that differentiating factor that separates you from the next girl or the next guy?
What makes me unique? I don't know. I joke around and say I'm prolific a lot.
That's a first. I haven't heard that before. I
Yeah,
like
I know.
that.
That's right. And see, that's why I'm unique.
I like that.
Uh,
Second question. What was the last book that you read, and what was one thing you liked about the book or you picked up from the book?
I've been very slowly reading The Road Less Stupid. I read about a chapter maybe 3 times a week in the morning. I get up pretty early. I get up around 5 in the morning and I try to get my reading done. I can only fit in usually a chapter. And I love that book, The Road Less Stupid. It's a very good book for any business owner.
Final question. What was the last? Sorry, what do you do for fun? Sorry.
I'm super social. I like to hang out with my friends. So I'm very social. I like barbecues and just getting friends together, going out, going to restaurants, wining and dining.
Makes sense. Okay. Well, if I'm a listener thinking, wow, I really like Lorraine, I want to reach out to her, maybe jump on our coaching program. What's the best way people can reach out to you, get to know you better?
My Instagram handle is This Mom Flips. You could also find me on Facebook, although I probably won't reply to you because I get crazy DMs there. It's Lauren Hardy on Facebook, but my Instagram is the better way to get around all that. This Mom Flips. And if you are interested in a virtual real estate coaching program, go to www.virtualinvestingmastery.com.
Lorraine, you're an absolute legend. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate your time today.
Thanks.